All right. Hello, everyone. I hope you all are doing great and having a wonderful day ahead. And before we start today's webinar, I would just like to introduce our platform, Positivity. So, Positivity is a Singapore headquartered mental health organization committed to making quality mental health care accessible and affordable for everyone. Our aim is to connect individuals with the right experts on our platform while creating awareness around important topics. Speaking of important topics, today's webinar is on social media and smartphone addiction. And in a world where we are constantly connected, it can be difficult to recognize our digital habits and when it begins affecting our mental health. So today we will be exploring that in this webinar. And we have joined today by our very own speaker, which is Pooja Mehta. And she is a psychologist and she specializes in result oriented therapy. She uses evidence based approaches, including CBT, dialectic behavior therapy, and her work mainly focuses on helping people better understand themselves. So we are very delighted to have her here. And without any further ado, Miss Pooja, over to you.
Thank you so much. I'll just start presenting it and then we'll go ahead with it. Okay. And so, hello, good evening, and thank you so much for the introduction. So, as we know, our topic for today is to understand, say, how we use social media and what is, say, smartphone addiction as well. So, we're going to go about with this particular topic for today and to explore habits that can change our any kind of addiction related to social media and smartphone. Yes. So about positivity, as it has been already been spoken about. So let's start with our session today. So the question here isn't whether, say, we use our phones. The question is actually here whether our phones are using us. So I want everyone to just take a pause for a moment and think about the first 10 minutes of your morning. So, what exactly is happening in the first 10 minutes after you wake up? Do you stress? Do you drink water? Or do our hands automatically just reach our phones? For most of us, the answer is obvious. Most of us, what we do is not consciously. But what's fascinating is unconsciously also we decide to check our phones. Our body simply does it for us. Our body simply does it without us even knowing. So, that is the first sign of behavior which is becoming automatic. So, today I don't want to convince anyone to say stop using technology because, come on, technology is incredible. We work through it and we communicate through it and learn through it, and we're connected because of technology today, right? So, the real question is not that do we use our phones. The real question is who is making that decision? Is it you or is it the phone making the decision for you? So as we see the statistics today is very surprising because on average everybody, each and every person might be checking their phones over 100 times every single day. So imagine that someone interrupted your conversation 10 times, or imagine you're eating lunch and someone is tapping on your shoulder continuously. Imagine you're watching a movie and someone call your name constantly. So this is eventually what happens. Our brain is going to be exhausted. Yet that is exactly what notifications are doing today. Every single vibration is an interruption towards our brain. So evolved is our brain today is evolved to notice these interruptions. Because say thousands of years ago, interruptions often meant danger. So if suddenly, for example, you see 1,000 years ago, when suddenly somebody heard leaves moving in the forest, ignoring it would have meant, say, the possibility of death. However, today our brain is reacting the same way towards notifications like, say, someone liked your photo, or you have a new message, or flash sale, or etc. Our brain doesn't really distinguish whether something is important or something is very trivial. It simply notices something new. So today we are psychologists, what we call it is attentional capture. So novel information automatically grabs our attention. Anything new. And another interesting observation that I have made through my practice is that people often tell me that I wasn't really planning to use my phone. I just opened my WhatsApp to check a few messages and reply to them. However, 20 minutes later, I'm scrolling through, say, cooking videos or tapping through somebody's travel reels or somebody else's vacation. So, what happened over here? The original intention has disappeared and the environment has taken control over it. So, before we even start discussing what addiction is, I want everyone to question yourselves just one thing. So, am I really using my phone intentionally or am I simply responding to it automatically? So, that is something that we're going to explore today. So, when like how frequently do we cross the limit or what is the line into addiction? So one misconception that I hear every week in therapy is that I'm always on my phone. However, saying that I'm always on my phone doesn't really mean that I'm addicted to it. It actually necessarily could be like, for example, a person working in marketing may spend 10 hours on their phone every day, or a professor might read research papers on their tablet all day long. So that isn't addiction. So we don't define addiction by time. We actually define it by loss of control. So that distinction is extremely important over here. So for example, think of coffee. Most people drink coffee every single day. That does not automatically make them addicted to it. But if someone develops headaches, irritability, anxiety whenever they miss that cup of coffee, then we start thinking it differently. That maybe there are certain issues related to it. Similarly, the same principle applies to smartphone. So the first is we compulsively use it. We check our phone even when there's absolutely no need to. Not because something happened, because our brain just automatically has learned it. It's become a habit to use it every single day. Have you ever said like just 5 minutes and 45 minutes later it has just passed? This isn't poor time management. It that is basically impaired self-regulation. So our prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain which is responsible for planning and decision making, is slowly losing the battle against, say, our brain's reward system. Thirdly, what also happens is we start craving for something. We start noticing something interesting. Sometimes people don't even have notifications, but we still go on our phone. We still tap our phone. We still open it. It is because we're craving some kind of information. Like maybe someone texted, maybe I got some notification, something or the other. That maybe that uncertainty is something that makes it addictive. Fourth point is continuing despite negative consequences. So someone knows that they should go to sleep and needs to stop scrolling. Still we continue scrolling. So the insight does exist. However, our behavior does not change. Finally, there's interference with our relationships as well. That's a major aspect today, which is why this topic becomes even more important. So, families today might be physically together, but imagine you're sitting on a dinner table and everybody is just scrolling on their phone. Even though you are physically together, there is no bonding. There is no, say, experiences that are being shared. However, everybody is just on their phones scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. So, this is what is extremely important. It's not just now technology today or smartphones. It's not just costing somebody's time. It's actually costing us our relationships. That is something which I want us to focus on. So, understanding, say, smartphone addiction versus social media addiction. Those are again two different terms that we often use interchangeably. So, psychologically, they're not the same. Smartphone addiction refers to the dependence on the device itself. That means that phones become the default response to everything. For example, I'm bored, I use my phone. I'm waiting, I use my phone. I'm waiting for the lift to come, I'm using my phone. I'm standing in a queue, I'm using my phone. I'm just sitting alone, I'm using my phone. So the phone becomes part of, like, it's an extension of my body. So social media addiction is more specific. The attachment isn't to phone, it is to, say, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, LinkedIn, Twitter, anything. So here's a fascinating way to look at it. If I took away Instagram but gave you YouTube, many people would simply just shift their platforms and start scrolling again. So what is it that really a human being wants? It's connection, it's validation, It's something new, and it is entertainment. And these are few basic human needs. So social media is something that delivers it very efficiently and very quickly. So, which is why what we do is we end up scrolling and scrolling. So that's why social media becomes one of our biggest drivers for smartphone addiction. So the phone is only like the doorway. The apps inside us is what is consuming us. So now what exactly are these apps? And why is it that these apps become so difficult to put down? So let's understand why it is. What I'd say it is not an accident. It's actually by design that it's happening in. So our attention, your attention is somebody else's product. So most people think social media sells apps, like social media companies are selling apps. But no, the real product is that our attention. Think about television, say years ago. Programs competed for our attention. Today, algorithms are competing every second of it. So every feature on our screen is very carefully designed in terms of behavioral scientists. It is designed by neuroscientists as well, designed by designers and data analysts. Infinite scrollings. Does it ever happen that okay, you're talking about say traveling somewhere and automatically my phone, like my phone on my like Instagram on my phone is showing me reels that is of that particular location that I was just talking about yesterday. Is that surprising? No, because our phones are built to give you what you want. So suddenly, what happens is, for example, you're watching Netflix and there's a next episode icon over there where you tap on and it continues. Simply, what happens that we are intentionally, where our emotions are being engaged intentionally. Psychologically, this is very fascinating because if someone is reading our messages, for example, our brain is automatically starting to create stories. For example, if you've texted someone and they're not really replied to your message in the span of say a couple of hours, what happens is our brain will start thinking about it. Our brain will start creating stories. Did I upset them? Or did I do something wrong? Why are they ignoring me? So what happens is our brain is actually filling these gaps. So finally, what is happening is we are emotionally being attached to these social media apps. We're emotionally being attached to all of these things, which is actually designed to gather in your attention. So the algorithm is quietly changing the reality that we experience. So when our reality changes, our emotions change too. But none of this would really work unless our brain had one very special chemical. Now, that is why is it or we become addicted to anticipation, not just pleasure. So this is probably like one of my favorite concepts in psychology that most people think dopamine is the pleasure chemical. Actually, that's only partly true. So modern neuroscience has shown that dopamine is much more than anticipation, than pleasure. Imagine like it's your birthday tomorrow. You're excited today. So nothing has happened yet, but your brain is already releasing dopamine for that anticipation. So that anticipation itself becomes rewarding. And the same thing is happening with our smartphones. The voice of the notification sounds. So the brain automatically thinks that somebody is waiting for me. Something might be waiting. So I need to go back and check my phone. And that is something which is incredibly powerful. And you don't really know what is this message about. It could be absolutely anything. Still, our brain gets excited. And after every notification, what happens is it creates a lot of anticipation. And then dopamine is released. So, dopamine strengthens the habit formation. Eventually, our brain says, let's do it again, let's do it again, let's do it again. And we keep doing it, experiencing it, and it becomes a loop, right? So, now, moreover, what also happens is we become, say, excited every time we're using our phone. Why? Because it is giving something interesting every time. You scroll through five reels, you don't find something interesting. But the sixth reel, say, gives you something interesting. So then you keep scrolling more and more and more, thinking that maybe the next reel or the next picture is going to give me something that I can maybe learn from or give me something that's going to make me happy. So when anticipation takes over, checking becomes almost automatic. So that is why let's understand more what these rewards are and why is that we keep coming back to it. So variable rewards, why we keep coming back to it? So now that we understood dopamine, let's really talk about something that's even more fascinating. I want you all to imagine a slot machine in a casino. You put in money, sometimes you lose, sometimes you win, right? Sometimes we win a lot. So now that's the interesting part. If a slot machine can give you 100 rupees every single time you played, it wouldn't actually be very addictive because you know exactly what to expect. So there is absolutely no excitement. So the addiction comes from uncertainty. Something sometimes like nothing happens and sometimes very exciting things happen. So this is what is called variable reward schedule, and it's one of the strongest forms of reinforcement in behavioral psychology. In fact, research says, dating back to say B.F. Skinner's work on operant conditioning, demonstrated that behaviors rewarded unpredictably tend to persist much more stronger than behaviors rewarded on a fixed schedule. So now think about your phone. Every time you unlock it, what is it that you're expecting out of it? Maybe somebody replied to your message. Maybe a friend sent you something funny. Maybe there's absolutely nothing. Your brain really doesn't know. And that's why it keeps on checking and checking and checking. Notice something about your own behavior. Have you ever picked up your phone while watching television? Then, halfway through scrolling Instagram, you suddenly opened WhatsApp. Then, from WhatsApp, you went to Gmail, then to YouTube, then to Amazon, and you really forgot what you originally wanted to do. Nobody instructed you to do that, but our brain was simply searching for the next reward. So, as psychologists, we know that uncertainty is incredibly motivating. So, humans are naturally driven to seek information. And what is more interesting is that the brain wants to resolve that tension. So, now let's think about social media. Not every post is interesting, right? In fact, most really aren't even interesting. But every once in a while, there is something that you see is extremely funny, or somebody announces good news, or anything that will help you uplift your mood. So those occasions are the ones which tell our brain, keep going. Maybe the next one will be better. And that's when what happens? We are scrolling for the next 40 minutes straight. So let's also understand the neurological toll of automatic habits. So what happens inside our brain when smartphone becomes automatic? Every time we receive a notification or something rewarding online, our reward circuit is activated, releasing dopamine. Dopamine isn't just a feel good chemical, it's the want more chemical. It motivates us to keep checking for the next reward. Over time, our prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for decision making and planning and self control, has to work much harder to resist these urges. So, automatically, it becomes really difficult for us to say stop the habit that has already been formed. So, our attention system also suffers because constantly we're switching between apps. Have you ever wondered that why am I not able to sit at a place and concentrate at a particular thing for say 30 to 40 minutes straight? Because our brain is so used to switching between apps like it's nothing. Like, okay, I'm opening Instagram, then I'm opening WhatsApp, I'm opening Facebook, I'm opening something else, automatically one after the other. So, making it really harder to sustain focus on one task. Even while you're watching television or you're watching Netflix, you'll be scrolling on your phone. Why? Because now, if you see, our brain can't really just sit with one thing at a time. Then the emotional brain comes in, particularly areas involved in emotional responses, becomes more reactive. We become more impatient, we become more restless, and emotionally affected by notifications or social media interactions. So sometimes we become really happy. Why? Because we're constantly getting say notifications from our Instagram, or we're getting a lot of messages from a lot of people. Or if you go back to say a time when you say posted a picture or a video or something, be it on any social media platform, and you get in responses. What happens? You feel happy. So automatically posting is associated towards feeling happy. So our emotions again become a really important part in ourselves. So the key message here is that the more often we repeat a behavior, the more automatic it becomes, requiring less conscious effort and making it harder to interpret. So if these habits become automatic in the brain, how do we know whether our own behavior has crossed into digital dependency? So now let's check that. Right? So recognizing the signs of digital dependency. Smartphone addiction isn't really measured only by screen time. It's identified by patterns of behavior. Let's go through these signs together. So, checking your phone without notifications is something that happens on a daily basis. And if it's happening way too much, then we really need to notice why is it that we're doing it or make a genuine effort to reduce it. Then saying just 5 minutes and then suddenly it's just 45 minutes, 60 minutes just gone by. Again, another sign of digital dependency. And using your phone while eating. So we're eating and we're scrolling. So we don't really know what we're eating, how much we're eating. And by the time the plate is over, we might still feel hungry because we don't really know what we've eaten. We don't know the taste, we don't know the food, we don't know if we're actually full or not. So we're not respecting the food on our plate, neither are we respecting ourselves for having either of it. Then scrolling before sleeping, one of the worst habits I'd say as a psychologist. Firstly, scrolling before sleeping means a lot of dopamine right before going to sleep, which automatically is going to hamper our REM, which is rapid eye movement, the very most essential thing for a good night's sleep. Then reaching for your phone right after waking up. So, as we discussed earlier, it just becomes a habit. Naturally, we wake up and our body just reaches for our phone, saying, say, what time is it? Or our alarms are set on our phones. And then we open it, we check our emails, we check our WhatsApp messages, say, did we miss something important last night or anything? And then automatically our morning is, say, driven, or we wake up and the first thing we do is we go on our phone, then feeling restless without it. Imagine that you can't use your phone for the next 25-30 minutes. What will happen? We start thinking about it, or maybe we start feeling very restless. Okay, now what to do? What if somebody's messaged me? What if somebody's calling me for something important? So automatically we become so restless, and our attention is automatically broken because of it, and therefore we feel very difficult to concentrate. So picking up your phone without even realizing it. So lastly, what happens? It becomes really difficult for us to do anything without really picking up our phone. Picking up our phone has become like a very natural habit. It's like an extra. It's an extension of our body. Like the phone is an extension of our body that we can't go anywhere without our phones. Be it after waking up, be it going outside, be it as simple as going to the washroom, we still take our phones. Why? Because we can't really do anything without it. So the key takeaway over here would be like having one or two of these things occasionally is normal. But whenever several parts of this becomes part of our daily lives, begins affecting our work, begins affecting our relationships or well-being, it's actually worth paying attention and taking a look inside ourselves that okay, what am I really doing? So let's look at how these habits gradually influence our mental health. So here what happens? The psychological weight of constant connection. Constant digital connectivity doesn't only affect our productivity, it affects our psychological well being. So, one of the biggest consequences over here is that there is poor concentration. One of the biggest and most important consequences, especially in today's day and time. Our concentration lacks everywhere, be it while talking to somebody, be it while reading, be it while listening, be it while watching a movie. Our brain is constantly switching attention instead of actually sustaining it. Many people also experience sleep disturbances because of it, especially when you're using your phones late at night. This impacts our memory, this impacts our mood, this impacts our energy. Another common effect is anxiety. Waiting for replies, checking notifications, or constantly staying updated can keep the brain in a state of heightened alertness. We also see increased stress because the mind never really truly disconnects from work, social media, information. Then, FOMO or fear of missing out is also one of the important aspects today, which creates pressure to stay online. So we don't feel excluded from something that's happening or some conversation that's happening online or some or the other trend reels that's going on online. Over time, this contributes to a lot of emotional exhaustion, the burnout that we don't really understand, but is what we're going through. And one point will come wherein we can't function without it. So many individuals also report a lot of lower self esteem, especially when they compare themselves to idealized lives online. And finally, frequent distractions often lead to procrastination and reduced productivity, creating guilt and even more stress. So, these effects don't appear overnight. They build gradually through repeated habits, which is why awareness is so very important. One of the biggest hidden costs of smartphones isn't just time, it's what they replace. So, phones consume far more than just our time. So, when we think about smartphones, we really focus on the hours that we've spent using them. However, the real cost goes far beyond it. Every moment we give to our phone is also taking away something else. It may be our attention, it may be our ability to fully be present in the conversations, or our capacity to think deeply. The constant digital stimulation also reduces opportunities for creativity. Or creativity, if you say what it might be 5 years ago to what it is today. Just take a moment to reflect on yourself, how it could be. Is it the same? Is it not really the same? How is it? Then, at the same time, creativity is something sexy because creativity often develops during the quiet moments when the mind is free to wander. And now, because we're not keeping our mind free, it's impossible to be more creative. Sleep can also be compromised, particularly when phones become part of our bedtime routine. Relationships may suffer when people are physically not present in the relationship, but maybe say physically present in the relationship, but mentally not present in the relationship. Productivity decreases because every time there's interruption, requires brain to refocus and which consumes a lot of mental energy. And most valuable resource we have isn't just time alone, it's attention. Whenever our attention goes, our energy will flow. Another powerful influence of social media is how it changes the way we see ourselves. So, what happens is the highlight reel of others will become our measuring stick. How many times would you say that, okay, wow, this person's life is so nice, this person's life is so glamorous? Where is it that I'm lacking? Why can't I have such a life? Because we see somebody's highlighted reels and we compare it to ourselves. So, social media rarely would show everybody's reality, it only shows carefully selected highlights. So, normally our brain compares our ordinary life with somebody's best moments. This is the so called social comparison. Over time, people may begin seeking validation through likes, comments, followers rather than from their own sense of self-worth. This also contributes to FOMO, fear of missing out, making us feel that everybody else is much more happy or much more successful and or having a better life than us. Constant exposure to idealized images can also encourage perfectionism, making people feel that everything they do needs to be perfect, needs to look perfect. This is particularly relevant for, say, body image concerns, because body image today is also one of the leading causes and leading concerns of anxiety, especially among adolescents and young adults who are frequently exposed to, say, edited and filtered images. Eventually, emotional well being can become tied to online feedback, making more dependent on digital approval rather than internal confidence. So, we hear what I'd say as a key message is that social media isn't necessarily harmful, but comparing our behind the scenes life to somebody else's highlight reel can significantly affect our mental health. So, why do we intentionally what happens when we actually reach for our phones whenever life becomes uncomfortable? So, let's explore that. So, the phone is rarely the problem, it is the coping mechanisms. Most people don't reach for their phones because they're happy. They reach for it because they're trying to change how they feel. They're trying to understand? No. They're trying to just change. If I'm feeling sad, I don't want to feel sad anymore. I don't want to know why I'm sad anymore. I just want to become happy. And the quickest and efficient and the most simplest way to do it is either you go through social media, you go through some sense of say funny videos, anything, and instantly the sadness will be converted to happiness, even though just for temporary basis. It becomes coping mechanisms for tons of emotions, not just sadness, but stress, boredom, loneliness, anxiety, or even silence. So instead of processing uncomfortable emotions, what we also do is we distract ourselves from them. So we don't want to know what's going on. We will only distract ourselves from it. This provides temporary relief, but does it really solve anything? No. So that's why simply deleting an app or reducing screen time doesn't always work. If the emotional trigger remains, another behavior often will replace it. So the simple act is not that you delete the app. No. You focus on the emotions that are driving you to using it. So, a more helpful question here is not how do I stop using my phone, but the more important question over here that I like to be and focus on is that what emotion am I trying to escape? Understand that emotional trigger is the first step towards healthier coping strategies. So the final step is becoming aware of these automatic patterns so that we consciously choose to behave differently. Right? So pausing to examine our automatic reaction. So lasting behaviors change always begins with self-awareness. So before reaching out for our phones, pause and ask yourself these four questions. One, what emotion am I feeling right now? Is it stress? Is it boredom? Is it loneliness? Or is it anxiety? What am I trying to avoid? Sometimes it's an uncomfortable emotion or an unfinished task. What am I most likely to scroll? Identifying patterns which will help us recognize our triggers. Finally, ask yourself, am I choosing to use my phone or am I simply reacting automatically? And the most important question is this: am I simply reacting automatically or am I choosing to use my phone? This small pause activates our thinking part of the brain and helps us move from our habit towards intention. So, the goal isn't to stop using technology, it is to build a healthier and a more conscious relationship with it. Now that we understand why these habits develop and how they affect us, let's conclude with some practical strategies to regain control over our digital lives. Right? So, learned behaviors can be intentionally, say, redesigned. So the good news is that smartphone addiction is not a personality trait, it's a learned behavior. So brains develop these habits through repetition, through constant repetition because of neuroplasticity. So what is neuroplasticity? It is the more you constantly repeat something, that becomes your reality. So if you feed yourself positive things, that will become your reality. If you feed yourself negative things, that is going to become your reality. So, neuroplasticity is a very, very important term. So, these habits, however, can be changed. So, change will happen not only because of willpower. Willpower will get exhausted. One day you have willpower, the second day you will not. One day you'll be motivated, another day you will not. So, no. Instead, sustainable change comes through what? Awareness, understanding our triggers, and redesigning our habits and our environment. So the goal isn't to eliminate technology, it's to become intentional about how we use it. So, how do we practically redesign these habits? Let's look at some evidence based strategies for this side. Okay. So, evidence based strategies for reclaiming attention. Small environment changes often work better than relying on self control. So, turning off unnecessary notifications because they constantly will interrupt our attention. Then use timers to increase awareness of your screen time. Use a timer for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, but make sure you stick to that timer. Keep your phones outside the bedroom for both, not just our better, say, no, reducing our late night scrolling, but for also better sleep, for a better and improved sleep. And keep an alarm clock instead of your phone to wake you up. Removal of social media from your home screen to reduce automatic checking. Try grayscale mode, the apps that are less visually stimulating. Because the more brightly apps that are lit up, the more dopamine is released in your brain. Because it releases emotions. Then log out after every session of accessing the app. So this will automatically have make sure that whenever you're using it, you'll have to log in again. So that's an intentional choice. And most importantly, you need to schedule phone free hours. Times when you do not use your phone. Absolutely not. For any reason. Be it, say, you're reading a book, you keep your phone away from that room, you switch it off, or you keep it somewhere else. Do that, and you will definitely notice in certain changes within yourself. So, making a healthier choice is easy for a day or a two. However, making it sustainable, doing it every single day for an extended period of time is something which takes in a lot of not just willpower and motivation, but discipline. So, reducing phone isn't just enough, we also need to replace it with healthier habits. So, replacing it with healthier habits is that we can't simply just remove a habit. We need to replace it with something which is better, which is healthier. So let's ask ourselves, so instead of scrolling, what is it that I can do that genuinely will help me recharge? It could be as simple as taking a small walk. It could be as simple as journaling or painting or just taking a uh, switching on some music and listening to it, calling somebody that you care about, or practicing mindfulness, or even reading something that was different from using electronics, especially your mobile phone. These activities will not just distract you, they will actually improve your mental well being. It will actually help us understand and help us mentally and make us more, say, creative in forms, make us think more critically, question things. So remember, the goal isn't just to spend less time on our phone. It is to spend more time where we live more intentionally is the goal. So these habits become even more powerful when we build them into our daily routine. Right? So structuring your day for a better digital boundaries. So digital well-being isn't about one big change. It's about small daily habits and small daily boundaries that we set with ourselves. So start your morning without a phone for at least the first 30 minutes. This will give our brain a calm start. Secondly, eat meals without scrolling or without watching anything. Just eat while being mindful of what is there on your plate, or maybe having a meaningful conversations with people around you, especially when it comes to dinner tables. During work, focus on one single task instead of constantly switching between tasks. That is again a game changer. At night, keep your phone outside the bedroom. That will help you improve your sleep quality, plus help you with some time away from your phone. And when you're with your family, with your friends, practice being fully present. And not just by keeping your phone upside down, say, for example, on the table. No, by keeping your phone in your bag. Because that is how you will actually be present 100% over there. And people remember how present you were, not just how quickly you replied to messages. Create moments in your day where your attention belongs completely to the people and activities in front of you, where you're 100% present in that time and day. So, if making all of these changes feels overwhelming to start, so let's see how to start small. So, lastly, so lasting behaviors change happens how it happens gradually, not overnight. So, this is just a 7-day roadmap which will help you towards reaching the goal. However, the goal will only be reached if at all you are intentionally wanting to change. So, day one, for example, you simply just track your screen time. Awareness comes first. Day two, you turn off unnecessary notifications. Day three, you will make meals, you will have meals without your phones. Day four, all you do is just wake up without your phone. Day five, start by deleting one app maybe. Day six, spend at least 1 hour offline. Day seven, reset and reflect. So, one day, one task. Not very difficult, very simple to start by. So, progress is more powerful when we actually do it one step at a time. Then we try to be perfect and doing everything in one single day. However, I will like to leave you with one final question. What kind of life are you building offline? Throughout today's session, we've spoken about say smartphones, dopamine, uh, say attention, habits, mental health, everything. But perhaps the most important question isn't how much we spend time online, it's actually what kind of life we're creating offline. Technology should be a tool that supports our lives, not something that quietly will just replace it. Every notification completes for your attention, but only you can decide whether your attention truly belongs there or not. Because at the end of the day, your attention becomes your life. So, my favorite line over here is that one day our phone battery will die and you'll simply just recharge it. But every day that passes, a part of your life's battery is used up too, and that one can never be recharged again. So, I'd say spend it where it truly matters. So, I'd like to finish the session with this particular thoughts. And if there are any more questions or any questions, I'm open to it. Thank you.
Right. So, uh, anyone has questions, they can type it down. And thank you all for joining us today and being part of this wonderful webinar and meaningful conversation as well. So, as we conclude today's webinar, we hope it has given you a better perspective of how smartphone usage should be done and, social media addiction, how it plays a role in our daily life. We don't even know it, right? And why these platforms are designed in certain way that keeps us engaging, keeps us addicted to it, addicted to it. And it is important to recognize our digital habits and taking the first step towards building a more balanced and mindful relationship with technology, right? And a sincere thank you to you, Ms. Pooja, for sharing your expertise and valuable insights with us today, right? And her practical guidance and evidence-based approach, the 7-day roadmap, is really, really helpful, I think, for our audience as well.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah. Before we sign off, we encourage everyone to explore Positivity platform. So, Pooja, you can share your screen.
Yes.
Meanwhile, when she's presenting the screen, I'll just drop down our website name also so everyone can check out.
So this is the website, and this is my profile where you can book in a one-on-one session with me according to the slots and according to the duration that you would like in. So for here, as you can see, my qualifications. I've done my master's in clinical psychology and I've been pursuing my PhD in the field of psychology, especially with critical thinking and how AI is being used today as well. So these are my field of expertise. I am open to taking sessions in, say, Hindi, English, Gujarati. These are the three languages that I would specialize in. And at the same time, if you can see, the therapies that I offer are multiple. There are more like elective approach that I take in with all of these therapies taking in command. Say from art therapy to CBT to REBT, all of these with say particular therapies according to what the client requires. Accordingly, we make in our therapy sessions accordingly. And some areas of expertise are especially, say, anxiety, depression, relationship, then anger management, and any kind of mood disorders. So these are some areas of expertise that I have with adults and couples and teenagers. So this is the website link as shared in the chat box. And this is my profile. Accordingly, you can book in a session if required. Yeah.
Right. All right. Thank you everyone for joining and taking your time and participating. We hope to see you in our future webinars as well. And